Okay, let's move along here with our look at Dreamweaver CS3. In this video tutorial, we're going to learn how to insert images into web pages using Dreamweaver. What you're going to find out is that there are several different ways you can insert images into Dreamweaver, and we're also going to look at how we can position images, and we're going to look at the different image types that you can insert into web pages. So let's start with that. Now I've popped open. Well, I'm in the just a Windows file system here, so I could show you a preview of the images that I'm going to insert into our pages. Now, I want to point out a few things. First of all, I want you to notice that we have an image which is readingman.png. This is a PNG image. This is a JPEG image. JPG is short for JPEG. And this is a GIF. Some people call it a GIF or GIF image. So the first thing what we got to learn from this is that there are three different image types that you can insert into a web page: PNG, JPEG, GIF. And so the first question that comes to mind is, why do you need three different image types to insert into web pages? What's the point? I'm not going to get into a big history of it, but a lot of these things like GIF and PNG and JPEG, there wasn't some grand master plan by the early nerds in web design. It was just a question of different groups of people seeing a need for a different type of image for web pages. So these types were created. So let's get into it. GIF is, well, I'm not going to give you the history, but let me just say this. There are different times when you want to use a GIF, a JPEG, or a PNG. And I'll quickly just cover that here, although I'm going to have a separate video on images in web pages. But essentially, GIFs are great for images, have very few colors. Like you see, it has very few colors, and it's and has basic transparency. You see, it's semi-transparent. You can actually see a little white outline here, which is the transparency limit of this image. Whereas JPEG is another image type. It doesn't have transparency. See, it's a solid square. JPEGs basically are it's a file format, and you can think of a file format as a way of just packaging up an image or packaging up image information. So the JPEG file format is really best suited for images that have lots of shifting colors. You know how there's tons and tons of different colors when you go from the orange to the red and back to the orange. And because the color is not really that solid, JPEG compresses these really well. So the images can be quite small, but still look good. Now you could use a GIF format for this particular image here, but the resulting compression, because of the way GIF works, or GIF, or GIF, the way that this file format works, the GIF file format works, it wouldn't do as good a job as JPEG when it comes to these type of photographs where you got all kinds of gradation in terms of your colors. Whereas GIF is much better at compressing solid colors like this. It's better than JPEG is. So if you have like text, logos, that kind of stuff that are solid in color, it's better to use a GIF. If you got photographs, natural pictures, it's better to use JPEGs. For instance, in this website here, on this page, you notice like this button here, this is a GIF because you see it's a solid orange and white. Whereas down here, because we have a photograph of my mug, my face here, we use a JPEG because it has all this. See how it goes from light green. You got all the gradation. Really, JPEG does a superior job. Although I want to let you know that you could use a GIF to make this, and you could use a JPEG to make this button up here. It's just that the JPEG, to get the same quality look, you're going to get a much larger file size. Anyhow, and we'll get into this in more detail in the video dedicated to creating images for the web. What is PNG? PNG, or PNG as some people call it, is another file format that is close to GIF in terms of how it packages up image information, in terms of how it compresses. PNG came later than GIF. PNG is much more advanced. It has much more advanced transparencies, and it has all kinds of other capabilities that GIF doesn't have. So what would you use, GIF or PNG? GIFs, depending on the software that you use to output your images, tend to be slightly smaller than the equivalent PNG. So let's say, this Reading Man PNG is a 6 kilobyte file. As a GIF, it may be a 5.5 kilobyte file. So it's really not such a huge thing. And most of the time, for anything with the very smallest of images, like arrows and stuff, I usually use PNG. And for photographs, of course, I always use JPEG. Irregardless, in terms of file sizes, it's always good to have very light pages that download quickly. But in today's internet, in today's web, where more and more people are getting high-speed internet, and you have sites where you have videos playing and stuff, to get too concerned about how many kilobytes your pages are is becoming more and more a thing of the past. Anyway, when we get into the the image editing video, where I show you how to use Photoshop to prepare images for the web, these type of things, I'll get into detail with regards to this. Anyway, we have our 3 images here, and I want you to note one last thing, and that's the names of these images. Notice I got Reading-Man, Sunset, and Video-Wheel. First of all, you notice there's no space here. It's Reading-Man, not Reading Spaceman. And the reason I do that is because it's you never want to have spaces in your file names when it comes to any files related to websites, whether it be your page names, folder names, or image names. Keep that in mind. Another thing I should point out is that I always like to use all lowercase in the naming, because it's just cleaner, as opposed to if I had uppercase, Reading Man. It's actually cleaner to keep it all lowercase. Trust me, when you start dealing with tons of images and tons of pages in your website, you're going to thank me for that. And finally, I think a very important thing I want to point out is that you should name your images with intelligent names that describe the images. So Reading Man PNG sort of tells you what Reading Man, what you're going to see in the photo. Sunset tells you what you're going to see in the photo, and so on. And the reason you do this is 2 reasons. Number one, when you're working with Dreamweaver, and here are these images now, or you're just looking at your images as files, you see how the names tell me something about the images without me having to go right-click and preview in browser. Preview browser, Firefox. So, Dreamweaver then previewed image. But since I gave it an intelligent name, I know pretty much what the image is about.